Imagine this. You wake up to an alarm clock that feels more like a summons than a beginning. The room is still dark, your body heavy, your mind fogged with a dull ache that coffee will only partially disguise. The day stretches before you like an obligation, not an adventure. You drag yourself through the motions, emails, meetings, tasks that never end, but also never seem to mean anything. You come home exhausted, but it's not the kind of exhaustion that comes from climbing mountains or building something worthwhile. It's the hollow fatigue of a soul trapped in a loop. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers, maybe you're just lazy. You've heard it before, at school, from parents, in job evaluations, in the quiet disappointment of friends who seem to have it more together. You've even said it to yourself as if naming the flaw would somehow motivate you to fix it. But strangely, the more you try to just work harder, the heavier everything feels. You start believing that maybe you are broken, that something essential is missing from you that others naturally possess. Now pause. Ask yourself, what if this isn't true? What if laziness is not a personal defect at all? What if the real defect is in the invisible structure you're living inside, the web of expectations, incentives, and illusions that shape your daily life without your consent? What if the thing that feels like personal failure is actually a perfectly logical response to a system designed to drain rather than ignite you? You see, human beings are not designed to wake up every day to perform tasks divorced from meaning, for purposes they did not choose, under values they did not set. Yet somehow, we've accepted this as normal. You're told to chase productivity, but rarely to chase purpose. You're told to keep up with the pace of the world, but never to question whether that pace leads anywhere worth going. And when you inevitably feel a resistance, a disconnection, the diagnosis is always internal. You're unmotivated, you lack discipline, you need to fix yourself. But here's the paradox. If you place a thriving, healthy plant into poisoned soil and it begins to wither, you don't blame the plant for lacking ambition, you question the soil. So why don't we do that with ourselves? Imagine a world where laziness is not treated as a personal flaw, but as an intelligent form of resistance, a signal from your deepest self that something in your environment is wrong for you. A signal that the system you're in may not be aligned with the nature of your mind, your values, your creativity. That maybe your fatigue is not a sign of weakness, but of wisdom. But here's the unsettling part. The system you're in, whether it's the corporate grind, the education machine, or the social script of success, isn't built for human flourishing. It's built for efficiency, for predictability, for profit. And a human being in full creative alignment is not predictable. They don't fit neatly into schedules. They question orders. They disrupt patterns, which means if you've been feeling disconnected, unmotivated, or like you can't bring yourself to care about the goals you're supposed to care about, it might not be because you're failing the system. It might be because the system was never built for you to thrive in the first place. This is the great question we avoid asking because it's dangerous. If the system doesn't fit you, should you change yourself to fit it? Or should you question the system itself? Most people never ask. They accept the verdict of laziness and go on trying to whip themselves into productivity like a stubborn mule. They buy planners, download habit tracking apps, consume endless motivational speeches, anything to force their mind into compliance. And for a while, it works. The guilt-driven energy pushes you forward, but it's unsustainable. Eventually, the willpower drains, the laziness returns, and you start the cycle of self-blame all over again. Meanwhile, something tragic happens. Your truest talents, your real ambitions, the things you could do if you were free, they shrink into a shadow realm of maybe one day. But one day rarely comes. Because here's the truth. The system doesn't want you to wait for the perfect moment to live differently. It wants you so occupied with survival that you forget there's an alternative. So ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly alive in your work or daily life? When was the last time your energy was natural, not forced? When you didn't need to push yourself because the very act of doing pulled you forward? And more importantly, when did you start believing that such a state of living is a luxury rather than your birthright? There's a reason these questions feel unsettling. They threaten the stability of the narrative you've been told your whole life, that the problem is always you, that the solution is always to do more, try harder, sacrifice rest. But there's another narrative buried deep in the human story, one that thinkers from Jung to Sartre have hinted at, that much of what we call personal failure is actually a natural rebellion against systems that deny our individuality, that the soul resists not because it is weak, but because it refuses to be enslaved. The irony is almost cruel. The traits you've been taught to hate in yourself, the resistance, the daydreaming, the inability to care about certain tasks, may be the same traits that could save you if you listened to them instead of silencing them. The tragedy is that most people never will. They'll keep fighting themselves instead of questioning the conditions they're in. They'll go on believing they are broken, not realizing the world they're in was built to break them. And so the question remains, hanging like a shadow over everything you do. Is it really laziness, or is it misalignment? That question is the doorway. On the other side lies an uncomfortable but liberating truth, one that could change how you see not only yourself, but the entire structure of modern life. The problem is, once you step through, you can't go back. The question lingers like a splinter in the mind. Is it laziness or misalignment? To answer it, you have to look beneath the surface, past the motivational slogans, past the productivity hacks, past the self-blame that's been drilled into you since childhood. You have to go down to the roots, and what you find there is not flattering to the world we live in. Because the truth is, the system you think is normal was not designed with your individual happiness or creative fulfillment in mind. It was designed to keep society functioning in a predictable, orderly way, which sounds reasonable, until you realize that predictability is the death of individuality. From the moment you could hold a pencil, you were slotted into a structure. School taught you how to obey bells, sit still, complete tasks on command. Creativity was tolerated only when it could be graded, boxed, and controlled. Mistakes weren't opportunities for curiosity, they were marks against you, and the unspoken message was clear. Your value is measured by your output, and your output is defined by someone else. Carl Jung once wrote that, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." Yet the modern world pretends there is one universal shoe, the school system, the corporate hierarchy, the 9-to-5 schedule, that everyone must wear, whether it fits or not. If it pinches, if it blisters, if it causes you pain, the solution is not to change the shoe, it's to toughen your feet. Work harder, harden up. But Nietzsche would have laughed at this. He saw the danger of systems that flatten the individual, calling it the herd morality, a set of values designed to keep people docile and interchangeable. In his eyes, so much of what we call morality is simply obedience in disguise. To question the system is to break free from the herd, and that's something the herd fears. Schopenhauer went even deeper, suggesting that much of human existence is driven by blind will, an endless striving for things that never satisfy. Society, in his view, exploits this striving, keeping people running on a treadmill of desires. Better grades, better jobs, bigger houses, shinier titles. The system thrives on your dissatisfaction because it means you'll keep producing, keep consuming, keep moving, all without stopping to wonder if you're moving in the right direction. This is where the idea of laziness becomes a trap. If you slow down, if you refuse to run the treadmill, if you question whether the destination is worth the journey, the system labels you defective. Not because you are defective, but because your pause threatens the momentum it needs to keep going. Aldous Huxley saw this coming decades ago. In Brave New World, he imagined a society where people are kept docile not through force, but through pleasure and distraction. Why rebel against a system that gives you endless entertainment, instant gratification, and enough comfort to dull your dissatisfaction? The genius of such a system is that it doesn't need to imprison your body, it only needs to sedate your mind. And sedation doesn't always look like sedation. Sometimes it looks like busyness. Sartre warned about this too. How people hide from the responsibility of creating their own meaning by burying themselves in tasks and roles assigned by others. It's easier to be told what to do than to face the terrifying freedom of deciding for yourself. The psychological trap is subtle. You are taught to equate obedience with virtue, busyness with worth, exhaustion with honor. You internalize the idea that to be tired, overworked, and compliant is the mark of a good person. And so, when your body and mind resist, you turn the blame inward. But here's the part they don't tell you. Resistance is not failure, it's data. It's feedback from your psyche, the same way pain is feedback from your body. If you burn your hand, you don't call your nerves lazy, you thank them for warning you. Jung might have called this resistance the whisper of the self, the deeper, truer part of you that knows when you are living against your nature. Ignore it for too long, and it begins to rebel in quiet ways. Procrastination, apathy, fatigue. Not because you lack discipline, but because discipline toward the wrong ends becomes a form of self-betrayal. But society doesn't frame it that way. Instead, it reframes your symptoms as proof of inadequacy. Feeling drained? You need to push harder. Not motivated, you need more discipline. Burnt out? Take a weekend off, then get back to it. It's a bit like diagnosing a bird that refuses to swim as having a work ethic problem. We laugh at the absurdity when it's about animals, but we accept it without question when it's about ourselves. And here's the more sinister layer. This isn't just about work. The system reaches into your sense of identity. From childhood, you're fed a narrow definition of success: grades, degrees, salaries, status symbols, and warned that deviation is dangerous. The message is clear: adapt to the system or be left behind. But the cost of this adaptation is immense. It's not just that you might end up in a job you hate, it's that you might spend years suppressing the parts of yourself that don't fit until they wither from neglect. You may never write the book, paint the canvas, start the business, or explore the path that could have brought your life meaning. And the cruelest part, you might not even realize what you've lost, because the system will keep you too busy to notice. This is why calling it laziness is so dangerous. It closes the case before you've examined the evidence. It turns a complex systemic problem into a shallow moral judgment, and once you accept that judgment, you stop looking for the real cause. The roots of the problem are deep, woven into education, economics, culture, and even language. We have words for work ethic, but not for alignment ethic. We praise hustle, but have no collective word for soulful engagement. The system has shaped our vocabulary in a way that makes questioning it difficult, even in our own minds. But here's where the tension builds. Once you see this clearly, you can't unsee it. The idea that your laziness might be a rational, even healthy reaction to an ill-fitting system is destabilizing. It means you have to stop asking, how can I make myself fit this world, and start asking, what kind of world would fit me? And that's dangerous, not just to the system, but to the comfort of certainty you've lived with. Because if the problem isn't laziness, if it's misalignment, then fixing it means more than tweaking your habits. It means questioning everything: your job, your education, your goals, your values, maybe even your relationships. And questioning everything is how revolutions start. Which brings us to the next truth, one most people never face until it's too late. The unseen consequences of living in the wrong system dawn to just sap your energy. They quietly shape who you become. You might think the cost of living in the wrong system is just frustration, boredom, or wasted time, but that's the surface damage, the obvious cracks in the wall. The real damage runs deeper, in ways you can't see until you step far enough back to see the whole structure. Misalignment doesn't just drain your motivation, it reshapes you from the inside out, and the longer you live within it, the more you become a different version of yourself. Smaller, quieter, less daring, less alive. Imagine a river forced into a man-made canal. At first it still moves with the energy of its original flow, but year after year, as it hits concrete walls and sharp turns that weren't part of its natural course, the water slows, sediment builds, the once living current becomes stagnant. That's what happens to the human spirit in the wrong system. And here's where it gets more dangerous. The change is gradual. You rarely notice it happening. You adapt to the pace, the values, the demands, not because they're right for you, but because adaptation is a survival instinct. Slowly you forget the feeling of being in your own current. Psychologists call this learned helplessness, a state in which you stop trying to escape a bad situation, even when an escape is possible. It's not that you can't get out, it's that you've been conditioned to believe there's no point. Your mind learns to conserve energy by shutting down the impulse to fight. You start telling yourself stories to make peace with the cage. This is just how life is. Everyone hates their job. It's normal. I'm not passionate because I'm just lazy. And every time you repeat those phrases, They carve grooves into your identity. You begin to accept the idea that a life of minimal excitement, muted creativity, and chronic fatigue is simply the adult condition. The sigh. STEM loves this because once you stop expecting more, you stop threatening its stability. You become predictable. The system loves this because once you stop expecting more, you stop threatening its stability. You become predictable. But predictability isn't neutral, it's dangerous. Because the more predictable people become, the easier they are to control, not through brute force, but through subtle manipulation. Here's how it works. Cognitive biases do the heavy lifting. The status quo bias makes you irrationally prefer what you already know, even if it's harmful. The sunk cost fallacy keeps you trapped in jobs, careers, and lifestyles you hate because you've already invested too much time or money to walk away. The social proof effect convinces you that if everyone else is struggling and calling it normal, you should too. Neurological adaptation seals the deal. Your brain's reward pathways adjust to the environment you feed them. If the only dopamine hits you get are from shallow distractions, scrolling, binge-watching, shopping, your mind starts to equate pleasure with numbing, not growth. Deep satisfaction becomes foreign to you. Cultural conditioning finishes the job. Society tells you that rest is laziness, that ambition means climbing the pre-approved ladder, that wanting more is selfish unless it benefits the system. Over time, this conditioning changes what you even want. You may think you've lost your motivation, but what's really happened is that your vision has been shrunk to fit the boundaries of the system. You're not chasing your dream, you're chasing whatever scraps of fulfillment the system allows you to have. And here's the truly chilling part. The system doesn't just take your energy, it takes your sense of possibility. Without that sense, you stop seeing alternatives. You stop imagining a life that could be radically different. You stop asking the big questions, not because you've found the answers, but because the questions themselves have been buried under the noise of daily survival. This is why so many people wake up one day in midlife with a vague, aching emptiness. They have the house, the career, the routines. They've done everything right, and yet they feel like a ghost in their own life. The tragedy is not that they failed, it's that they succeeded at something that was never meant for them. Fyodor Dostoevsky understood this despair. In his novels, characters often suffer not from physical poverty, but from spiritual poverty, a life stripped of meaning. They try to numb it with routines, with petty ambitions, with distractions, but the hunger always returns. And when it returns, it's harder to face, because the more years you've spent adapting, the more terrifying it feels to imagine breaking free. What would happen if you actually stopped and asked, "What do I want?" You might realize you've built an entire identity around answering the wrong question. The unseen consequence of all this is that you become a stranger to your own potential. There are skills you never discover, passions you never ignite, relationships you never deepen because you've been too busy playing a role that was written for you. And it's not just personal, it's societal. A society full of misaligned individuals becomes a society that stagnates. Innovation suffers when people are too drained to think differently. Art suffers when people don't have the freedom to explore. Even morality suffers when people are too busy surviving to question the ethics of the system itself. This is how the wrong system perpetuates itself, not through force, but through quiet erosion. It doesn't need to break you quickly, it just needs to keep you slightly off balance, slightly unfulfilled, slightly too busy to revolt. And if you felt that gnawing emptiness, that strange guilt about not doing enough, that constant suspicion that something is off, that's your warning sign. It's the crack in the wall where the light gets in. But here's the danger of cracks. The system will rush to seal them. It will offer you just enough relief to keep you from questioning too deeply. Weekend escapes, consumer upgrades, the occasional wellness day. It will tell you this is normal, that you're fine, that everyone feels this way. And if you believe it, you'll stay, you'll adapt, you'll survive, but you won't live. The most dangerous consequence of misalignment is not burnout. It's settling. It's reaching the end of your life and realizing you lived in a script you never wrote, for a purpose you never chose. And if that thought doesn't make you uncomfortable, it should. Because once you see the cost, there's only one real choice. You either keep paying it, or you start the rebellion. Every system that imprisons the human spirit has one weakness. It depends on your belief that you are powerless. The moment you stop believing that, the walls start to crack. But rebellion isn't always dramatic. It doesn't have to look like storming the gates, quitting your job in a blaze of glory, or vanishing into the wilderness. In fact, the most effective rebellions often begin quietly, with a single decision. I will no longer live by rules that are killing me. From that moment on, everything changes. The first step in breaking free is shifting the question you ask yourself. Most people trapped in the wrong system keep asking, how can I get better at this game? Rebels ask, why am I playing this game at all? Nietzsche called this the revaluation of values, the radical act of questioning the very standards by which you measure yourself. If the system defines success as constant productivity, you have to ask, is that actually my definition? If it says the most disciplined worker is the most virtuous, you have to ask, or is the most disciplined worker just the most obedient? This is uncomfortable territory because it means stripping away the borrowed values that have defined you. Without them, there's a void. Sartre called this void freedom, but warned that most people run from it. Why? Because freedom is terrifying. It means you can no longer blame the system for every choice you make. And yet that's where the real rebellion begins, not in hating the system, but in reclaiming authorship of your life. Redefine success on your own terms. To break free, you must stop measuring yourself by metrics designed to serve someone else's agenda. That means asking questions that dig under your conditioning. What actually matters to me if no one is watching? What kind of work leaves me more alive than when I began? If I could remove every external expectation, what would I be building? When you answer honestly, you often find that your real ambitions have little to do with the markers of success the system prizes. You might realize you value deep relationships over climbing a corporate ladder, or creative freedom over a higher salary. This is where you begin to diverge from the herd, not by running in the opposite direction, but by stepping sideways into a path only you can see. Escape the productivity trap. The system survives by making you believe your worth is proportional to your output. To break free, you have to destroy that link. Stop asking, did I do enough today? And start asking, did I do what matters today? This shift sounds small, but it's seismic. It's the difference between scattering your energy across dozens of shallow tasks and pouring it into the one or two things that could actually change your life. Paradoxically, this often means doing less. It means ruthlessly cutting activities that keep you busy but not fulfilled. It means choosing depth over breadth. And yes, it means tolerating the discomfort of leaving some expectations unmet, because every yes to the system is a no to yourself. Learn the art of strategic non-compliance. Breaking free doesn't always mean abandoning the system entirely. It means refusing to let it shape your identity. Strategic non-compliance is about picking your battles. You play along where it serves your goals, but you refuse to internalize the system's definition of who you are. You might work a job within the structure, but you no longer see it as the core of your worth. You treat it as a tool, not a destiny. This approach is stealth rebellion. From the outside, you appear cooperative. On the inside, you're building an entirely separate foundation. Create parallel structures. The most powerful rebels don't just reject the existing system, they build alternatives. This could mean starting a side business aligned with your values, cultivating a creative practice that's immune to market approval, or creating a network of like-minded people who operate outside the dominant rules. Carl Jung believed that wholeness comes from integrating the parts of ourselves the world teaches us to hide. A parallel structure is your way of giving those hidden parts a home, a place to grow without interference from the system's judgment. And sometimes these side paths become so strong that they replace the main path altogether. That's when rebellion turns into reinvention. Master the inner game. No rebellion succeeds without psychological armor. The system will fight back, not always through direct confrontation, but through subtle guilt and fear. You'll feel the pull to go back to normal, to rejoin the herd. This is where philosophy becomes survival gear. Nietzsche's idea of amor fati, the love of fate, teaches you to embrace every obstacle as part of your becoming. Schopenhauer's clarity about the endless cycle of desire reminds you that chasing the system's prizes will never end in satisfaction. These ideas aren't just intellectual, they're weapons. They allow you to see through the illusions that would otherwise pull you back in. Reclaim your time like your life depends on it, because it does. The wrong system steals your time in small, barely noticeable increments, meetings, commutes, obligations you don't care about, until years vanish. To break free, you have to become aggressive about reclaiming those hours. Set hard boundaries around your attention, say no without apology, guard your mornings or evenings like sacred ground. The time you reclaim is the raw material from which your new life will be built. Accept that some people won't understand freedom has a cost, and one of the highest is social. The moment you stop living by the system's rules, you will unsettle people who still live inside them. Some will see your choices as reckless, others will feel threatened because your refusal to comply forces them to confront their own compliance. You have to decide now, is your authenticity worth the discomfort of being misunderstood? This rebellion is not about destroying everything in your life. It's about removing the invisible leash. It's about no longer mistaking the system's survival for your own. You can still participate in the world. You can still work, earn, create, contribute, but you will do so from a place of choice, not compulsion, from alignment, not obedience. And that is the moment you become dangerous to the system, because you can no longer be manipulated through guilt, fear, or empty promises. The system thrives on people who believe they need it to survive. The moment you prove to yourself that you don't, you've already won. But there's still one more step, because rebellion alone isn't enough. You can break free, but unless you anchor yourself to something deeper, the gravitational pull of the old world will eventually drag you back. That something deeper is the ultimate truth. The final realization that changes not just how you live, but who you are. Imagine for a moment that you've left the system's machine right behind. The noise has faded. The demands no longer dictate your every move. The leash is gone. But in the silence, something unsettling happens. You realize you have no script. There are no bells telling you when to wake up, no deadlines set by someone else. No pre-written milestones to aim for. At first it feels intoxicating, pure possibility. Then the unease creeps in. Because now, if you fail to live fully, there's no one else to blame. This is the point where many people retreat back into the system. They mistake the absence of external structure for emptiness. They crave the comfort of knowing what comes next, even if it means surrendering their freedom. And this is where the real truth hits. The wrong system was never just out there, it was in you. The most powerful trap the system sets is not physical, not economic, not even social. It's psychological. It teaches you to outsource the responsibility of meaning. It convinces you that life's purpose is something given to you, not something you create. When you believe that, you will always need a system, any system, to tell you who you are and what to do. This is why escaping the wrong system is only half the journey. The other half is building the inner capacity to live without it. Carl Jung understood this intimately. He wrote of the individuation process, the journey of becoming a whole person, as one of confronting the shadow, integrating the parts of yourself you've disowned. When you remove the system, you meet those parts face to face. The fears, the contradictions, the desires you've hidden even from yourself. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. The reason you felt lazy wasn't just that you were in the wrong environment. It's that you had never been forced to create your own environment from scratch. You had been surviving on borrowed meaning. The final shift. The deepest liberation comes when you realize you will never find the right system to slot into, because the point is not to fit into one at all. The point is to become the kind of person who generates as their own alignment wherever they are. You stop looking for the perfect job, the perfect city, the perfect lifestyle to fix you. You understand that you are the system now. You set the rhythm. You define the values. You choose what deserves your time and energy. And because this comes from within, it's untouchable. No corporate layoff, no economic downturn, no societal shift can take it from you. This is where Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch, often misunderstood, becomes relevant. It's not about being superior to others. It's about transcending the inherited values of your time, creating your own compass, and having the courage to live by it, even when it defies the crowd. When you reach this point, laziness stops existing as a concept. There is only alignment or misalignment. When you're aligned, energy flows naturally. When you're misaligned, you adjust, not by forcing yourself to obey, but by changing the conditions until they fit who you are. The weight of freedom. This realization is exhilarating, but it's also heavy, because it means you can no longer hide behind the comfort of saying, "I had no choice." You do have a choice, you always did. That weight can feel crushing if you mistake it for a burden, but if you see it for what it is, a crown, it transforms into the deepest form of power you'll ever know. Viktor Frankl, surviving the horror of the concentration camps, discovered that even when every external freedom is stripped away, one remains. The freedom to choose your attitude, your response, your meaning. If that freedom can survive in a place designed to annihilate the human spirit, it can survive anywhere. And here's the paradox. Once you fully claim that freedom, you might choose to step back into systems, not because you need them, but because you want to use them as tools. You can work a job, participate in society, engage with institutions, and still remain untouched at the core, because the core is yours now. The final picture. You started this journey believing you might be lazy. You discovered that laziness was often a symptom of being trapped in an environment that drained rather than nourished you. You learned that rebellion is not about burning everything down, but about reclaiming authorship of your life. And now, the final piece. It was never about finding the perfect system. It was about realizing you are capable of building one from within and carrying it with you wherever you go. The wrong system tells you, you must become what we need. The right truth tells you, you must become what you need, and then let the world adapt to you. Once you see this, everything changes. You stop asking, how can I be more disciplined? And start asking, how can I design a life I don't need to escape from? You stop fearing rest because you know that when you are aligned, rest is part of the process, not the enemy of it. Most importantly, you stop measuring your life by how well you serve systems that don't serve you. The cinematic ending picture. This. You wake up tomorrow morning. The alarm goes off, but it's not dragging you into someone else's plan. It's calling you to your own. You know exactly why you're getting up, not because it was assigned to you, but because you chose it. The tasks ahead are not all easy. Some are grueling, but they feel connected to something that matters to you. You feel the quiet satisfaction of moving in your own current. You know you could stop at any moment, and the choice would still be yours. And somewhere deep inside you realize the old accusation of laziness has no hold on you anymore. It belonged to a world you no longer live in. You are no longer a plant in poisoned soil. You are the soil, the roots, and the gardener. And in this realization, you are free, not because the world around you has changed, but because you have. The wrong system is everywhere, but so is the right one, if you carry it within you. And now you do.